I'm introducing to you a small piece of research examining the motivations and emotions linked to the formation of a voluntary sewing group formed in response to COVID-19. Now, there was a proliferation of small localized groups, regional and national groups that formed because of the perception of the lack of personal protective equipment needed by the NHS and healthcare workers in the early part of lockdown. So I'm going to introduce you to the Tamworth volunteers sewing for NHS and healthcare workers. Tamworth being a very small market town just north of Birmingham, my hometown. She says, trying to move the slide on.
Anne-Marie says something about, oh yeah, about the person down.
Thank you. Don't know how I did that. So there's been to the Tamworth group, formed from two women who initially got together on Facebook, and within what seemed like a couple of weeks, there were up to 500 volunteers, all from this small population. The founder had two daughters herself who were nurses, and a lot of people joined because either themselves or their families had been involved with the National Health Service in terms of treatment, employment, or association, and it grew very rapidly. And there's relatively little attention paid to informal community groups and activities. And during that immediacy of lockdown under COVID, these under the radar groups came to the fore when responding to risk and need, and are really important when it comes to considering what civil society is. Seemingly formed overnight, and this group was something that I was really interested in. What made women, particularly women, they were nearly exclusively women, want to volunteer? What were the emotions and the motivations linked to this? And it was quite a large number when it comes to quite a small town. So this piece of research was interesting because it examined the motivations, the emotions, considered the volunteering activities of individuals. And I did this by way of an online questionnaire, asking participants about how they heard about the group, what their motivations and feelings were. It's changing itself. Um, and it seemed reasonable to surmise that COVID-19 will alter all of our communities once this period of history has passed. And I thought it was particularly of interest to look at the sense of community and mutual purpose, given the social and financial impacts of COVID-19 on all communities. So mixed methods research, 99 participants took part out of the original group of 500. And it was a qualitative and quantitative GISC survey, considering the responses of individual research participants. So I looked at whether the location was important when it came to individuals volunteering their time, skills and resources. And indeed, it seemed to be 80% of my respondents felt that the fact that this was a Tamworth group had been important for their reasons for joining. So there was that sense of connection, of coming together as a geographical community. Only 20% of respondents indicated that the location of the group made absolutely no difference to their decision to joining. And there's a lovely picture of my castle. Looking at the emotions and feelings connected with the collective of volunteering. So I wanted to capture some of these emotions, and respondents to the survey offered quite extensive comments to the question. The questions asked linked again to feeling part of a community effort. And for some, there was a deep sense of anger at the political aspects surrounding COVID-19 at that time. Some felt a sense of real pride and a sense of community cohesion, doing something together. And other replies indicated a sense of doing something to assist themselves, their own well-being, and of feeling that they're being purposeful, particularly during lockdown when everyone was inside their homes and feeling perhaps a sense of frustration, confusion, and anxiety. So I'm going to just pull out the key themes. And again, we are jumping. Okay, so the first theme was a feeling of appreciation within that sense of community. There were many replies to this questionnaire, highlighting that participants enjoyed the creation of community at a time of crisis. And they also felt that their efforts were appreciated by the Facebook I can't remember the word now, the Facebook organisers, those that were organising the collective. And appreciation was an emotion that was significant from most of the respondents to the questionnaire, particularly to some of the 10% of participants who disclosed that they were disabled. They felt that it was important for them to be useful and to be valued in the collective of the community. The second emotional response was anger. Anger at the lack of PPE equipment and for the political reasons connected with the research. Many of the respondents commented about the government's perceived lack of provision for NHS wards, for critical care staff, and for health and community care staffs. And this group were very politically aware of the predicament of our emergency services. So items were made for ambulance crews, for policing, for community care homes, and they weren't just for Tamworth, they were sent all around the region, as far afield as Lincolnshire and Wales. Wherever people needed PPE type equipment, comfort equipment, these items were sent. The third emotion was pride and feeling some kind of patriotic connection to the purpose of the group. And here's some more comments. There were comments alluding to doing something for the country at a time of crisis. Comments indicated less anger and more of that let's roll up our sleeves and get on with it approach. And again, that sense of purpose, a feeling that a really important task was being undertaken at a time where the country and healthcare staff seemed to be really struggling. And at the time on TV, news, media, there were a lot of images and accounts of health professionals really struggling with discomfort. So it was a very emotive time in terms of generating emotions. And one comment likened the group effort to the effort and energy of the land girls in the Second World War. And this imagery was captured by many, many comments within the research. And maybe this symbolism isn't unusual, since most of the volunteers were within an age group where their parents may have been present during World War II. And the studies and attitudes towards that rolling up your sleeves and contributing to the greater good is probably part of the attitude of those participating as volunteers. But I look at my age group, which, you know, sort of 40s, 50s, early 60s. Our parents went through World War II, and they often talk about, you know, stoicism, be strong, you know, help out community, and let's roll up our sleeves and do things together. So there was that sense of contributing to a greater purpose. And probably the fourth emotion that came through in the themes that I identified was that individual sense of relief of personal anxiety, helping and helpful to the mental well-being and the health of individual group members. There's no doubt about it, COVID-19 provokes anxiety amongst many of us, especially those of us who have underlying health conditions. And where people struggle with anxiety or mental well-being issues, this type of volunteering seemed to help. It seemed to be a distraction and a diversion from the helpless, hopeless situation that was played out in front of us. One woman spoke about volunteering being that distraction from her chronic pain. And a sense of inclusion for disabled respondents was quite profound. They felt that they were able to play a part in volunteering, a part of community, while shielding at home due to the virus. And that was really important to them. So just drawing it very quickly to a summary. Um, there was an emotional connection to purpose, vital when our respondents chose to volunteer their time, their skills, and their resources to this community cause. The emotions connected with volunteering were that sense of being appreciated and being needed, a sense of anger about what should have been provided, they thought, from others, the government in particular, pride about the individual and the collective volunteering process, and a feeling of self-worth and confidence. As an aside, the geographical connection to volunteering was really important in this piece of research. And that sense of community and mutual purpose might be of particular interest given the ongoing effects of corona virus and of COVID-19 on all communities across the globe. I found it particularly interesting as a leader of a community voluntary group of why people volunteer and how important emotion is and a connection to a sense of community. Thank you.